Hello, welcome to the penultimate round of Season 14 in the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Championship. My name is Sam Fitzpatrick, alongside me is Daniel Lee. Scott Nuto operating the cameras live on Apex Racing TV. We're here, like I said, for the penultimate round of the championship, and it is Circuit of the Americas, our host for this round, situated in the great state of Texas. Daniel, this place really does divide opinion, and it is one of the most tricky circuits for these guys to navigate for the entire season. But well, in the past we've seen some pretty good racing around this place. Hopefully we see them more tonight.
Yeah, good evening, Sam, and to all the viewers tuning in. Great to have you back again, as you say, second to last round of the championship. And it's a very interesting circuit, this one. A lot of straight sections, especially down through the back, some very technical twisty stuff. And then throw into that some of the bollards that are used mid-corner as well, which really spice it up for the guys that maybe get the lines a little bit wrong there. But it's a very unique circuit in its own right, but should present some interesting racing. Very wide open. The biggest thing for these guys tonight definitely going to be the off tracks, though, to avoid them.
Yeah, this place is right up there with Spa in terms of the off tracks, and then elsewhere through the S's, for example, if you just extend the track limits ever so slightly, easy to pick up damage, and that will really hemorrhage your pace for the rest of the event. It's also new an enduro for this round of the championship. We've seen some awesome enduro so far this season, particularly Monza was certainly unpredictable, to say the least. Rosberg ended up coming out on top, albeit it was a very big struggle for him to claim that top position by the end. And I imagine for this race, Daniel, with this high track temperature, it's 43 degrees track temperature at the moment out there. We've got a lot of long corners around this place. The Jazz are really going to be thankful that they've got to take tires at some point. This is going to really be a tyre killer, I imagine, tonight. And so that pit stop midway through the race could be quite pivotal.
Absolutely. I mean, the high track conditions out there tonight, it's 43 on track currently, 22 ambient. It's going to take the toll on the tyres. And as you say, the pit stops tonight, we know the guys have got to come down for the two, one for mandatory tyres in that stop. So that's going to be a really good thing. I think we'll probably see a lot of these guys continue to take those stops towards the back end of the race, just for the way that these play out. We know that there's a very high chance we're going to have a safety car. So trying to just manage those tyre conditions all the way through to the back end is going to set yourself up for a really good run, and then you can attack the course with very low fuel, good tyre grip, and see whether you can climb those few more positions that you need to cement yourself a really good finishing spot.
Yeah, it will be great to see Suzuka as well. Was a brilliant round for the endurance meetings, perhaps similar with the tyres, and we saw a real to and fro from some of the leading drivers in that one, and hopefully we'll see the same tonight. Ross Vizzo, of course, winning that last time out at Monza, and then we saw a very chaotic round at Road America last week as well. The drivers are currently in a 10-minute practice session. We've just got 30 more seconds of this practice session remaining, and then we'll jump into that hour and a half long race. Rizzo pretty much with the championship in the bag, we believe. Daniel, it's a little bit unfortunate that a few of the other drivers, like Danny Davison, for example, hasn't been able to necessarily attend all the rounds this season and make a real mark on this championship. Others, like maybe Nathan Hupperts, have had a few too many incidents to really play a part in the championship. But well, if you know anything about Ross, is that he's still going to give it his all. Even last season, when the championship was pretty much done and dusted, 2/3 into the season, he was still just as relentless in the final few rounds. So it'll be tricky to beat.
Absolutely. I mean, he has been the master of not only just strategy run, but just maintaining the race that he needs to put himself in contention to claim the victory. I mean, we've seen him come from leading the race. He's come from further down in the race and having to fight his way all the way through the field. And there's not really been any scenario that we've seen so far that has really tripped him up. So he's really in the box seat tonight, coming off the number one.
Absolutely, and there he is on pole position for this round. Nathan Hupperts in second place, Danny Davison and Andrew Dyson rounding out the second row of the grid. That is a very competitive front of the order. There's the couple more tricky esports drivers of Michael Healy and Trent Thomas. Tom Huggan lines up in 7th place. Then it's Shane Chancellor, Daniel Yeoman, Ashley Collins, Joe Chicavazara, Paul Warwick rounds out the top 12. There is Todd George, Scott Forsyth, Lucas Micallef, Adrian Vlock, Cam Walker, Justin Quinn, Chris Barnes, Craig Mason, Pete Minette, Jacob Meyer, Shane Griffin, Dylan Whitworth, Braden O'Logan, Tristan Kosh, and Neil Yates. we might also see Adam Gardner take the order, albeit I believe he may actually be in admin. Yeah, that will probably be the rest of the order. Slightly diminished feel for this round, of course, the 12 hours going on concurrently with this one, at least the same weekend. Very tricky for these drivers to adapt to 2 different circuits, and Kota, which probably requires more practice than any other circuit on the sim, maybe part the Nordschleife, but it is such a tricky circuit. This it will be tricky. For this race starts, Daniel, it can often cause problems. The green flag round here comes out mega late. Hopefully Rizzo knows what to do here, because sometimes it can get a little bit chaotic.
Definitely, and he's going to have to keep his eyes open for that. The minute the green flag drops, he's got to hold that inside line, because the run up into turn 1, as you know, you go up the big hill before you tip the cars in, really opens out for guys to throw the car up the inside. And we have seen in some real life events a lot of guys fire up the inside and have a massive incident. Hopefully we're not going to get that tonight, but for Ross, he's got to be wary of that, try and close that line down to then protect the run as they head down towards the S's.
Yeah, he is the man to beat. He's got, say, a marker on the back of his car. And let's see who is going to take this penultimate round of the championship then at Circuit of the Americas. Rizzo goes very early, doesn't wait for the green flag. And we are underway for 90 minutes of action in Texas. 3.5 tenths of a second, the gap between the top 2 at the moment. Huppert's being able to hang on to that position. Good start for Healy to be able to make upper place past Andrew Dyson in these very early stages of it. Dyson is trying to retaliate that, going into the SS for the first time. They are side by side, going into the SS, sorts it out, guys, into this part, and it is Dyson who holds onto that place. Chancellor also gets in past Tom Huggan a little bit further down. That's the only change so far in the top 10 places. They're very much single file by the time they got onto the pit straight, as they slalom through this very nice part of the circuit before being able to open up the throttle for this straight, and then the very long back straight into the 3rd sector. No one quite close enough to go for a big lunge, and yeah, that was a very nice Circuit of the Americas start there, Daniel, because well, like you said, it's easy to go for a dive, it's easy to get a bit over competitive into turn 1, but now that from the drivers.
Absolutely, everyone did a really good job getting through there. I did see right down towards the back end there was some minor contact for one of the cars down in 26th position. That was Shane Griffin, who got rotated the way through the S's, so he's fallen well off the back of the train. But everyone else dropping into single file very early on, and this is a really good start. The big one I'm keeping an eye on here, and we've seen a lot in the Aussie Supercar side, Andrew Dyson jumping on board the Porsche for DPR Racing tonight, and already finding himself up inside that top 4, so very quickly adapted to a completely different car style in the Porsche compared to what he's used to in the supercars.
Yeah, it's got some good results in the supercars over the years, as Andrew Dyson, as they navigate this very tricky turn 2. It's one of the worst corners in the world, I think. If they could somehow get rid of it, then that would be ideal. The IndyCar, it looks pretty cool, to be fair, because they track extends so much, they almost use the banking of the circuit. Something which we haven't necessarily seen so far this season. Also, not pulling away on the first lap, Nathan Huppert's, who hasn't won a race in a while. And I don't have a fantastic stats record of this series. You know, let us know on the chat if you know when Huppert's last won a race. But of course, nearly won the championship a couple of seasons ago. It would be awesome to see him back on the top step of the podium. He was like pretty competitive down into turn 1, just dropping off slightly as they go through the S's. Tricky to follow around this part of the track. Todd George still at the top of the rookie drivers, indicated by the red stripe. You can see it's all very colour coordinated at the moment, which is lovely to witness. He's just ahead of Mikolev, and well, he's possibly more by himself than any other driver in this top 20 because it's stayed very close so far. And Paul Rourke just situated ahead, trying to get the draft on Collins, but everyone kind of has the draft on one another, and the draft in these GT cars isn't particularly powerful. So also the Porsche as well, not the strongest car down the straight either, but is a real weapon through the corner, still regarded, I think, by most as the best GT car. Although, of course, one of the big features of this Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT series is the fact that we have fixed setups for all of these cars. They are balanced at a balance of performance against one another to make sure that no one in any car has an advantage over another driver. It's one of the best features of this. It really does give an indication of who are the truly best drivers, not who can just get a who's got the best setup. So it's a fantastic element. Or they just cannot get close enough and misses the apex slightly. May have to start looking in his mirrors in the near future.
Yeah, he's keeping an eye on the sector times as well. For the last couple of runs, Nathan Huppert's been very strong through sector 2, and he's retained PB as he continues to work his way through there. So that looks to be very comfortably set up for himself in the C8. Rizzo was very quick last time by through sector 1. They did get that time taken away from him from one of the cars a little bit further down. But all these guys really do have certain strong points that are going to suit them well. I think what we're seeing forward through the first sector, C8 through the middle, and then in that tight sort of point and shoot section of the final sector, that's really where the Porsche's coming on strong, and we're already seeing that car start to make some inroads against a few of the guys further back. We're right on board with Nathan Huppert's head down towards the start of the back straight. We'll have a look at the line that he takes in here. He closes massively up under brakes there, misses the apex. That will hurt him just a fraction, and then Rizzo gets a fantastic drive off just ahead.
So many different racing lines you can take around that corner. It's quite nice sometimes to take the corner a little bit more acute, just so that you've got a slightly better reference of the curve on the inside, because this track is so wide in parts. So Rizzo just disappears for a second. I think that may have put Huppers off slightly. But yeah, this circuit is so wide, it can be very tricky to see where the corner that you're actually trying to turn into. Yeah, sometimes it's better to take a slightly alternative line or bit top speed there, staying relatively similar to one another. Craig Mason is battling on with Pete Minette at the moment. I think that was just Mason losing that place because he's quickly losing some time to Minette just ahead. You can see a row of Porsches, many of the rookie drivers adopting the Porsche potentially as a safe bet for this championship. Not necessarily serving them too well at the moment. Thus, Mason takes a slightly alternative line through that and an inverse turkey turn 8 type corner. Flat out in a few of the single seaters, nowhere near in these cars. Yeah, it really is ebb and flow. You can be quick around some corners around this circuit and then very slow around others, and Mason does close up a little bit through those final few corners on that lap.
Yeah, he should be able to continue that pace. It's looking pretty good for him. As we turn our attention further up, Danny Davison has not been able to shake Andrew Dyson and Healy through the middle part of for the first couple of laps of this event. So you're going to have to look at some ideas of where he wants to position that. Does he stay out in front? And we know we've got a lot of fuel stops still to come, along with tyres for these guys to get home. But for Davison, might be starting to think about that strategy. Maybe let these guys through and see what they can offer up as well. Might be able to extend that fuel window a little bit more. As we see Andrew Dyson nicely up under the brakes there, and that DPR car looking very handy at this early point of the race.
Yeah, Dyson seems to have the advantage at the moment, and now the draft is kicking in. He could go for a dive down into the hairpin. Not really a whole lot that the driver on the outside can do. Oh, that is a dive there from Healy. Was very aggressive there. Trent Thomas just at the back of this one, thinking that maybe he's faster as well. So Davison, who has really been probably Rizzo's most consistent challenger so far this season, looking like he might fall backwards at the moment in this race. As well, Rizzo just opening up the gap in the lead to 1.1 seconds, so he's had a good lap so far on this one. That is Dyson and Healy. Healy just closing in slightly so far on this lap. The penultimate corner, yeah, Dyson's really got to get past Davison nice and quickly here. It can be tricky to overtake. You have got a couple of very long straights, but I don't know. Maybe it is possible to overtake. I'm not quite sure. We'll see. We don't visit this place a whole lot, to be honest. but I can't help but feel if he does just put it all on the brakes into turn 1 or turn 11, there's not going to be a whole lot that the P3 driver can do. Tyson just biding his time though, he wants to get a bit closer before he pulls the trigger.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where he looks to make a move as we drop further back. Jacob Mart's now caught up on the back of Justin Quinn here. We'll look to see a move down the inside into one. And Arthur Curtis from Sports there just backs out of that one, and he will retain that 21st position. But actually, I think he lost. Why didn't he lose the spot to Quinn? Quinn must have had a little bit of a moment on that lap somewhere, because he was ahead of these guys earlier on, and now fighting himself, holding on to that top 20 position.
Yeah, I think I saw Quinn's name just, or Quinn's position box just highlight red for a moment on that last start, so he had a small off, but not too bad for him. You can see he's missing the line slightly, and of course just missing the apex. And one of those S's can really hurt you for the rest of them. You look a bit further up, and it's Scott Forsyth still. Not too much occurring around these drivers. It's just kind of waiting to really ignite. I think this race, it should be very interesting later on. We could see safety cars as well. We did see a couple at Monza, of course, and we saw a couple at Road America last time out as well. Some huge runoff areas around this circuit, so it shouldn't be as much of a problem. But if someone loses it through the S's, then they could potentially be stranded. So it's something to watch out for. Jacob Meyer is now ahead then of Justin Quinn. So the most part of this lap to make that move. He is up into 20th position now, can set his sights on Minette and Mason ahead.
Yeah, he's already starting to gain a little bit of an advantage there on Quinn. So head down and bum up for Jacob, and he is pressing on quite nicely. The lap's looking pretty good. He's gained a little bit of time so far over the run, but a little bit more still to go as we switch our attention to this battle just ahead. Minette going to lose that spot there to Mason down the inside, and that's a nice switch of position into P18 for Mason, but this will leave him vulnerable up into turn 1. Minette got a very good run here. He's going to show the nose and look for him to stick that one down the inside as a little bit of a movement there and towards the braking zone of Minette. Fantastic drive to pull that car up as we see a bit of a race control decision. Car 197, collision not leaving room. So a little bit of an incident for those guys. That was Braden O'Loughlin involved in that incident.
Yeah, and he collided with Shane Griffin there, O'Loughlin, immediately serving that drive-through penalty. Not a dreadful drive-through, I think, around this circuit, but it's still not ideal, and it does just set you back. Means that you're going to have to spend the most part of the race just trying to catch up to the drivers who feel like you should have been racing from the start. So, yeah, bad news there for O'Loughlin. This could be a move here down into turn 10. Slight lock up for Minette there. He's desperately trying not to track extend. I think partly out of his own consciousness, but also aware of the 1X that he would pick up. And this will be pretty simple for Mason, I imagine, down on the brakes. I say that. Much later on the brakes for Minette, he's easily taken the apex and anything but there. That was way too cautious from Mason on the brakes, and also having to defend from Meyer quite significantly. Paul Warwick is really starting to face pressure now from Forsyth. This is the closest Forsyth has got for the entirety of this race. Warwick involved in a huge collision at the start of Road America where he crashed at the kink last time out on lap 1. And well, I don't think that will happen again tonight. I think there's any corners which are similar to that one. But Forsyth looking very much knocking on the door now.
Yeah, it was a tough break for Warwick last time out, but to his credit, to come back out and still pushing just as hard as ever. Misses the apex down in turn 1, so I don't know if it was a bit of the old commentator curse, but a little bit of a hip and shoulder there too with Scott Forsyth, and Forsyth's now going to lose 2 positions. You can see in the back of shot there as the guys head down in towards the S's for the 7th time tonight. Actually, Forsyth's able to only lose that 1 spot, so that'll put him now behind Lucas McAuliffe. And just actually, I think he's had some contact there because he's just dropped another 2 spots. and allowed George and Walker to also get ahead of him. So not a great late lap here for Forsyth.
Yeah, I wonder if we can get a replay of that kind of secondary incident and maybe the first incident as well, because it looked like Warwick was wide, and then he kind of straightened up the car perhaps a bit earlier than what Forsyth anticipated, and that pitched him into a half spin. Here was the second incident then. Was he helped around, or did he take too much curb? Always a bit wide already, and then just has to cut the circuit. Trying not to get too much of a slowdown, actually doing a very good rejoin right there. But you can see he's still got a slowdown as to serve it. And Forsyth, from looking like he was going to gain a position, has quickly lost a couple. And here was his half spin. In fact, they weren't really that close to making contact in the end. Forsyth did well not to have a complete 360.
Yeah, we misread that one. I always thought Warwick was involved in that, but yeah, as you say, just picking up the throttle a little too early, and did a really good job to avoid hitting those yellow bollards just on the mid-corner apex there as well, so no damage onto that car, and he'll get back underway and continue his fight. Dyson, meanwhile, a little further up, has started to now fall off the back of Danny Davison in P3. You see that gap starting to extend a little bit as Michael Healy for Trick Esports is closing in, and they're also bringing along Trent Thomas as well. So the Trick Esports car's looking very handy at this part of the race, and it could be up for a couple of positions. And Dyson looks like he's just struggling a little bit maybe on the tyres as they work their way through the S's.
Yeah, perhaps so. Should be getting a bit cooler for all these drivers, but particularly this first stint will be very harsh on the tyres, one would think. The fronts through that first safety car will be quite patient if you think about the long game rather than the short one. Expect too many drivers to make an early pit stop here. I mean, if you're stuck in a bunch of traffic, then maybe that would be the way to go. But we haven't got any like really long trains. I mean, maybe someone like Trent Thomas might think about making an early pit stop and undercutting these other drivers, but even in that scenario, I don't think it would be the wisest thing, because then you have to carry extra fuel around for the next part of the race. Tom Hagen just a little bit slow coming out of that hairpin. Hagen with a couple of podiums, I believe, so far this season, as Chica Vizara has gone off the circuit. Problems for Chica Vizara at the moment, and we are going to see where this one occurred. Has he been hit? He's certainly within hitting range at the moment. Taking the hairpin. No, he's just lost it all by himself. And then, that's a full 180. And, he was very lucky not to make contact with a few more cars there. And he's lost places to Collins, Warwick, Mikolev, and Georgian.
Yeah, a little bit of a half spin there. The brake zone was really good. He got in there quite nicely and got the car rotated through to right on board. And just at the critical point where you hit that mid-corner, it's gone around, and very fortunate there not to hit anyone. I'm sure Race Control will have a quick look at that just as far as the rejoin's concerned. But with a circuit as wide as this, he had plenty of opportunity to get that one completed and out of the way. And he's now going to come under fire here from Walker down the inside. There's a couple of moves going on ahead, and a little bit of contact there for Chica Vizara, and there's another car off. That's George going around at turn one.
Yeah, that was very chaotic down into the hairpin. We've got a proper pack now. Chica Vizara definitely picking up some contact there, albeit I don't think it will be too significant. Everyone's trying to avoid one another, and now we've got Mikolev missing a few apexes in a row here. Warwick is able to sprint away from these guys way up the road all of a sudden. Such is the amount of time that they've lost. And Walker will, at the moment at least, has a slight bit of apologies. Mikolev with a slight bit of breathing space. Very slow as well. Coming out of that one was Barnes just at the back of this train for M4 Motorsports. Apologies, as a pro tip right there. Walker nearly within passing range, taking a lot of curb there as well. Is Mikolev just cannot escape from these drivers. Having to go defensive almost into every single corner. Around this part of the circuit, you can go for a little bit of a surprise attack. Very wide entry there for Mikolev. He's got away with it, picks up the 1x on the outside. And these guys, yeah, hemorrhaging time with each other.
Yeah, keep an eye on Chico because he's trying to come back through as well. Very quick through that middle phase. He's going to send one up the inside here. Not just close enough to get that one through. I think there was a moment for Walker. He's had a little half spin and had to abort that one, and he's coming into the lane to knock over the first of his 2 stops tonight. Did also notice, looks like Jacob Mara unfortunately has had a internet dropout, so he was having a really strong run just around that top 20. Unfortunately, he's out of contention tonight as well. As we jump back up to the top 3, and this train is really starting to come back together again. Davison been able to close down a little bit on, Andrew Dyson's been able to close down a little bit on Danny Davison, and likewise the 2 Trick Esports cars have continued to come through. I'm really surprised as well, just ahead of this little train, you just see Nathan Huppert's in the top of screen. He has really fallen off the back of Ross Rizzo. That gap out to just on 3 seconds now.
Yeah, Huppert's, it almost looked like he was the faster driver in the first 2 or 3 laps, and then he just dropped to outside of a second, I think, since then, as really struggled to keep up with the race leader. Yeah, that gap over 3 seconds, as you say, but still keeping tabs on Danny Davison. Do question there how quick Dyson, Healy and Thomas could be lapping out here if they had a bit of clear air, but frankly, Dyson hasn't got close to an overtake, and he's slightly dropped off. He was consistently about 0.3 of a second back. Now he's half a second back, as Chico Vizara is back up into 12th position. He's got past Mikolev. Mikolev doing a good job there, only to lose 1 position. Such was the pressure he was under. But Joel now kind of just trying to rebuild his race. Remember, he lost 7 seconds with that spin. And yeah, trying to recover that time that he lost now. Next up is Warwick, 6 seconds up ahead. I doubt he'll catch him by the time they make their first pit stop. Tune in with the race leader. He is out on circuit, the championship leader, the race leader, the defending champion. Yeah, he is cruising at the moment, 3.1 seconds clear. Harper's taking a small bit of time out, but 7, 8 and 9 laps, some big gaps being taken out, and that last lap time from him is slightly slower than his others, so he's clearly the fastest man out on circuit at the moment, and looking on course for another endurance race victory. But with the way that these endurance meetings work, it is tricky to call what's going to happen next. So safety car 2 could absolutely turn this race on its head, so Rizzo is going to have to keep his wits about him.
Definitely, but he's just placing that car nicely as we watch the run through the S's and down onto the back straight. But not a lot of awkwardness in that car. It's hitting all the marks that it needs to and following through all the driver inputs very nicely. And this is looking very ominous already at 20 minutes in. We've still got a long way to go for the race, but it's already good signs here for Rizzo as we turn our attention back to Nathan Huppert's. Still has been probably the lead standout in the C8 over the course of this championship so far, continually getting the most out of that car, and a very strong contender. And then further back, fight for third still heating up as Andrew Dyson again closing back in on Danny Davison ahead. The gap down to 7/10 of a second as they work their way through to complete almost this lap. And the 2 Trick Esports cars of Healy and Thomas just riding in unison, haven't been too dangerous for those guys. They're just checking over the laps, continuing to hold that advantage that they've got, and looking after these cars. We might see some short pit stops from these guys later on too, if they are able to save as much fuel as they can.
No further action for car number 230, which is Walker, who has been cleared of any suspicions right there. So yeah, that is good news for the Aries Motorsports driver down in 22nd place. We might actually be able to find this replay, so thanks to Scott for finding this one for us. I think this was the lap where we had the spin, and yeah, so Walker understeered a bit there into Chigavizaria, but they decided that there was no bad intentions there and cleared him of any wrongdoing. Dixon gained that gap up to 0.6 of a second now to Dyson. Dyson will be able to sketch to the back of that Simrigs, apologies, that EXG Motorsports livery pretty soon. Transformers as well just dropping away slightly, 0.3 of a second slower than Healy on that last lap, albeit the tricky Esports driver did set his fastest lap of the race. Could be in a decent position when we get later on in the race, of course. Tom Hagen quite a bit behind these guys. Hagen giving his absolute all in the Ferrari. But you can see he just doesn't have the pace of those drivers ahead, consistently half a second or so slower than the drivers ahead. Could be a very lonely race for him tonight, Hagen. But keeping it clean will almost certainly get him at least one more position up the road. This was Shane Chancellor with a problem. That was a spin, so apologies that we missed that one for Chancellor. And that was well, that's an unusual place to lose it, Daniel. I wonder if you get a replay of that one, because he's lost that very early in the S's.
Yeah, so watching this one here, it looked like he, we're going to have a look at the onboard, it definitely picks up the yellow bollards on the inside, just commits a little too hard to that corner, and that's what sent him around. And we've been talking about those all night, and again, we'll probably continue to talk about them, but as a result, when you do hit these cars, and especially given how stiffly sprung they are, they're going to fire you off hard into the walls, and unfortunately that's the result of what will happen, as we see some good battling here as Barnes goes through, and then just in front of these guys, both Chancellor and Mikulev out of that final corner, getting involved in each other's way, and around they go. So Chris Barnes picks up 2 spots without really much effort there.
That was a weird one. So Mikulev was serving a drive-through penalty then, and Chancellor also came in. I was wondering if we could get a replay of that final corner incident. They all kind of tripped over one another, and we did have a couple of spinners coming out of the final corner, I think. And now this battle, which was really nice before, kind of for that outside of the top 10 positions, has very much separated. So here was Forsyth. So that's the C8 very slow. Gets into the pits. That was Mikulev into the pits. And then Forsyth, I think the Ferrari turned across slightly, and Forsyth could not do anything about that one. Was that Todd George that he collided with? I believe, not 100% sure.
Yeah, it was Todd George riding on board here. So you see that little moment for the C8. Everyone backs up behind, and really good job to not get avoided. George with the opportunistic move, 2 for 1 down the inside, and then just spins up the wheels just a fraction, and that's all she had in there. And for Forsyth, as you say, a bit of a unfortunate spot to be in, and has been caught up in that incident.
They do get faster pairs to these drivers, a couple of them across these endurance meetings, usually 1 for the 45-minute sprint races. And so if you do pick up some damage, certainly not too much to worry. We'll be able to get that fixed, which is very nice, because really no one likes to drive around a damaged car for a while. I think anyone who's driving in the Bathurst 12 hours will know that better than anyone else. That's iRacing fixes the cars to a certain extent, but you still have a bit of steering damage. That faster pair, though, pretty much a brand new car, fixes any damage that there is, and you can get back out on your way nice and quick after that. Davison is pulling away slightly. It's up to 1 second. I mean, this might just be Dyson just pacing himself slightly, just lowering the intensity for a moment, saving a bit of the tyres. So I don't think we should get too concerned. But at least Davison is kind of apologies. Sorry, so I'm being thick. So that's Davison catching up to Hartpers. Dear me. So Hartpers has actually fallen back. Dyson on that last lap. He lost 3/10 to a second. He's had quite a bad this lap as well, has Huppets, I think. And so this battle for P3, it might well soon be turning into a battle for P2.
Yeah, for Huppets here, I'm just keeping an eye on the lap pace. The last time by was a 2:03.1. He was about 5/10 slower than Davison and Dyson collectively behind. So the C8 really starting to hurt a little bit more on the tyres, and I'm not sure whether that's just a bit of a driving trait from Nathan, just being a little hard on the front tyres, which I'm not really thinking that it is. But yeah, just starting to fall away, and the gap similarly to himself and Rizzo continuing to build further up the road as Michael Healy now also comes in the lane to complete the first of his 2 stops tonight for Trick Esports, and he'll bring his Ferrari through for that one.
That is early for Healy. I am surprised about that one because it wasn't really, as Dyson always takes a bit of the yellow curb there, and he's taking tyres as well. Well, this is an aggressive strategy, I guess, Daniel. You know, he's going to have the fresher tyres to really attack on for the next few minutes. The problem is he's going to have more fuel. So is he necessarily going to be able to go that fast? He's also putting a lot of fuel in that car. I'm not sure if I'm convinced by this one, honestly, Daniel. If I was going to take tyres this early on, I wouldn't be putting really any fuel in. I'd be, you know, having as little fuel as possible, go to maybe the 50-minute mark and be really quick for the next 20 minutes and get the undercut. But he's filled up almost to go to the end of the race, or at least to go to probably the hour and 10 mark.
It's a very long time for Michael here to stay on this set of tyres to get the car home. We've only just checked over the half-hour mark for the race, and that leaves another hour to go for him. So a lot of work to do. The track temperature is still very high. It has come down a fraction from when we first started the race. It's now down to 38 degrees, which for an hour on these tyres is going to be killing them to no end. And we didn't see Michael making a big lot of inroads to those cars in front while he was even sitting in the draft. So potentially maybe going to go the 2 tyre stop strategy tonight, which would be very interesting to see. We haven't seen anyone really attempt that style of a pit stop strategy over the course of these championships. So it could be something in it for him if he's able to do it. It'd be interesting to see. But yeah, really unique strategy so far. But good to see someone rolling the dice and having a crack at it.
Yeah, this first stint for the judge, they should be able to last, I think, as much as about 50 minutes into the race. Of course, everyone's starting on the same amount of fuel load. So you can't really short fuel because it's a fixed setup. Is this championship? And so, yeah, you do have to, yeah, pretty much everyone has got the same ability there. Lucas Micallef, after that drive-through penalty, of course, earlier on, he's battling with Shane Chancellor, who has made a pit stop already. Chancellor did not take tyres at his pit stop. Interestingly, he just took fuel. Which again is a curious strategy. I'd love to kind of get the thoughts of these drivers. We'll be having a chat with the top 3 drivers post-race as Daniel Yeaman into the pits and out of the pits. 13th place. Would he be ahead of Healy? Healy doesn't exactly need this. It wouldn't be. It's not exactly going to wreck his race here, Healy, but it's an extra car for him to overtake. And yeah, Healy still just behind at the moment. Once again, Heeman not taking tyres, just taking fuel on that time round.
Yeah, that gives us a good indication too. So between those 2 cars, obviously just the fuel versus the fuel and tyre stop for Healy. So it's about a 20-second differential for those cars taking the tyres. So will be interesting to see later on how that unfolds. But for Yeaman, 17.83 seconds of stationary time, and for Healy there with the tyres, 37.83 as we drop back to this battle for third again. This has not let go so far the entirety of the race, and Andrew Dyson continuing to apply the pressure on the back of the EXG car of Danny Davison. He must be sick of reading the stickers on the back because he's closing in again and looking for another opportunity to come through.
Harper's really struggling now. Lost another. In fact, actually pulled away slightly to Harper's on that last lap, to be fair. But on the most part, he has been losing significant amounts of time. I'm surprised that the overtake has been so tricky so far in this race. I mean, turbulent areas are going to be too costly in these cars. It's just really tricky to kind of start the straight 0.3 of a second behind so that you can get within a 10th. When it comes to the braking area, you can see how big some of these braking areas is as Dyson takes a very alternative line. Should get a good exit from that one. And if, to be honest, if Davison didn't have the drop from Huppert's ahead, Dyson may have been in with a chance by the end of this straight. Dyson just losing a little bit of time so far in this lap, but will gain time down this back straight. And Huppert is seeing these cars loom ever larger in his mirrors. 6 seconds now, Rizzo with the gap. And yeah, Huppert's has been going downhill slightly. Would it be worth Huppert's bailing out early here, you think, Daniel? And maybe even putting a new set of tyres on to fend off his track position? Or do you think he should just, you know, last this one out and still pit maybe at the 45-minute mark?
Yeah, it's a really tough call. I think for Huppert's at the moment, he's just continuing to knock in the laps. Like, there's no big swings as far as lap pace is concerned for him. So he's hitting the marks where he needs to and positioning on. Danny Davison is going to come in and take stop early on, so that will give him a little bit of a reprieve. And for Dyson now, he needs to press on. But Huppert's is absolutely doing nothing wrong at this point. And I think from what we saw for Davison coming in, that stop probably compounded by the fact that they are closing up on the second position car and him trying to defend that third position when it all shakes out after the first round of stops.
Yeah, another aggressive strategy then. I assume Davison will take tyres. And now the big question is, does Huppert's react? Does Dyson react? I doubt Thomas will do. He's 3 seconds behind these guys. Probably going to go for an alternative strategy if he can. Maybe run longer in this first and hope that a safety car, perhaps, albeit actually a safety car would negatively affect him in that situation. Maybe hope for a safety car in the closing stages. Thomas, that would help him probably. And Davison came back out of the pits. And yeah, so Davison kind of doing what I thought would be kind of the go-to strategy on the first stint, or the first pit stop, sorry. Take tyres, but don't take any fuel. He's taken about 2 seconds worth of fuel there as Davison in that pit stop, which will only take him to maybe the 55-minute mark, the hour mark. So Healy's going to pull off a nice move here into the SS. That's nicely done there for the 948 car. But yeah, that's kind of the go-to strategy, I would say, Daniel. You know, at this point in the race, take the tyres, but don't take fuel, because if you take fuel, then you're just carrying extra unnecessary weight. Now we are going to see some real quick times from Davison, because, you know, he's low fuel and fresh tyres. This is very similar as well, I think, to the strategy he picks up Suzuka. Didn't quite work out for him on that occasion, but I think this one might be able to get him into that P2 here.
He's definitely on the money to try and gain those spots as he works his way through. If we go back to Michael Healy, who on that first stop we did say take the tyres. After Davison stopped there, the gap is still 9 seconds up the road to Davison. So even though it's a slight advantage of about 10 seconds, Michael Healy, has not really been able to make inroads into that time. Admittedly, he's gone past a couple of cars that have been a little bit slower than him. You can see them in the back of frame now, but it's been a tricky run for him, and I think you've probably called this one right, Sam, in just taking the tyres early on, push through the laps as best as possible, and see where it throws you out at the back end of it.
So on the YouTube chats, Grim Zenties has just commented saying how the C8 tyres are pretty bad after this many laps, and particularly seemingly the rear tyres tricky to get the throttle, tricky to get the power down at this point, which is pretty interesting. So yeah, maybe the C8's kind of suffering a bit more. As yeah, here comes Dyson here. This is as close as we have seen to getting an overtake out of these top guys. It's been a very entertaining race so far in this race. Don't get me wrong, but we haven't seen many overtakes in these upper places. We could see one right here, but Dyson maybe thinking of coming into the pits on this lap or something, decides not to go for it. I was just covering off the inside slightly. It is such a wide turn in for the right-hander. He's trying to get into the head of Dyson, trying to figure out what Dyson exactly wants to do. He's defending into quite a few of these corners, and considering that they're battling Davison and Thomas and co, they really want to be starting losing each other time unnecessarily. Dyson understeering the long right-hander as Rizzo comes into the pits just before the halfway mark of this race. And neither, no, oh, so late, he's going to crash surely as he hit the wall. No, oh my goodness me, I thought Dyson was a goner. How on earth did he get it stopped there? He carried so much speed into that, Daniel, and that was as close to a pit lane crash as you will ever see.
Well, here's a look at the replay. That is not the type of slide job that he would have been wanting to try tonight, but fantastic effort to pull that up in time and get it off the wall. We see the brakes as he snatches the tyre, getting it into the lane. So did very, very well to use all the road that he had available and gets that car down for the stop. As we did see two Nathan Hupperts, Trent Thomas also continuing on for another couple of laps. Here's another look at that entrance as well, just to see from a different angle of how this one unfolded.
Yeah,
he didn't leave himself a lot of room.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he wasn't even gonna. Well, I think he was trying to do the opposite of the driver ahead, and so he committed at the last moment. But wow, as Healy does get ahead here of Dyson, who took quite a bit of fuel there. Did Dyson? He took. Well, you know what? Actually, he only took 0.6 of a second more fuel than Healy. And he's 1.5 seconds behind Healy, so Healy did do some all right laps, or maybe it was Dyson getting held behind one of the other drivers, Hupperts. Sorry, apologies. Which kind of cost him time. So that is a net gain for Healy. Then that is a legitimate place he's gained, but obviously Dyson now has fresher tyres to the end of the race and 10-minute fresher tyres as well. So should have a decent pace advantage. And
the other thing you need to look at here as well, Sanso, is Danny Davison, with taking just the tyres, has got himself into the effective race lead when these pit stops do cycle out. As you see just in the back of shot there is Ross Rizzo, who did an almost identical strategy to his teammate Healy in taking fuel and tyres on that pit stop pass.
Yeah, good spotting. I managed to miss that one. So, yeah, very similar to Suzuka right now. If you recall, when Davison was a lot closer to Rizzo, to be fair, in that race back at Suzuka, and I think it was a proper 50-50 between those two. But still similar, with Davison not taking much fuel at the first stint, being very quick in this second stint. He needs to pay in some big times, build up a gap, but. Well, that would be that'd be ambitious to do, but well, he'll be leading a few laps at least of this race. Huppert's staying out. It's kind of strange, is it not, for the driver who seems to be struggling most with the tyres, Daniel, to not pit for tyres. Maybe that's to help him out later on in the race. Maybe he's thinking that he doesn't want to pit too early, otherwise his tyres will be dead by the end of the race. But yeah, I would have thought Huppert's would be the first guy to come in.
Well, I've been looking back at his lap times just to get a gauge of how this is unfolding for him, and he really has not moved that far from his best lap. It's currently about 0.5 of a second at this point of the race, so 42 minutes in. He's half a second slower than what he was compared to his best early on in the race. He's still knocking out consistent 203.4s, 203.5s in this car. So I think he's just playing the numbers game very, very well right now, and just working on hitting those laps after lap after lap, and doing everything he needs to do to get this car through. This might actually work out very, very nicely for him here. So we'll keep an eye on that as we see Dyson getting through on Michael Healy as well. These guys a little further back after their respective pit stops, down in 9th and 10th position, or 8th and 9th, sorry, as they are catching up to one of the slower tanked SRT cars. So those guys are in a good little scrap. But just to touch back to Danny Davison, his last 2 lap times, he set a PB a lap ago on a 2:01.72, which is by far the quickest lap that we've seen out here by any competitor. And that low fuel and clean tyres is helping him. The following lap, he follows it up with a 2:01.73. So making hay while the sun shines in that lighter Porsche.
Rizzo, though, just puts in the fastest first sector of anyone, so he wants to at least keep eyes on Davison. Doesn't want to let him get too far ahead. Davison should be able to get maybe another 10-15 minutes out of this stint. He's got a few drivers who have yet to come into the pits to deal with just ahead of it. That Porsche just ahead has not. It's a lap down. That will be Kristen Koch, who is just ahead, so he shouldn't be making this one tricky at all. Albeit Davison's going to catch up to him potentially at the most awkward points in the lap into the S's, and he needs to hope that this Porsche gets out of the way nice and quickly, preferably. On that last lap, we actually saw the fastest lap of the race with Ross Rizzo, 2:01 1.66. He's really not holding back now, and that gap between these two drivers comes down quite significantly.
Definitely, it's continuing to fall, and Rizzo up the road early on in the race was out to just over 7 seconds, so he's closed it down exceptionally well. As we see Davison down the inside on Koch there, so he'll get that pass completed, and Rizzo should be able to make this move similarly at the end of this long straight. He'll have a nice opportunity to get through, but that gap is continuing to come down, and not much between them at all. Healy and Dyson still continuing their scrap a little further behind, as they're only within a couple of tenths of a second, or just over a second between them at the moment, as they work their way down the back straight as well. Scott Forsyth coming back after that earlier contact that we saw him involved in, and he's got Todd George ahead, recovering Todd George after his earlier spin as well at the end of turn 1 about 15 to 20 minutes ago. So these two working their way back up pretty nicely at the moment, down in 16th and 17th position, both completed 1 stop so far tonight.
Yeah, coming up to 1 minute 46 off the lead at the moment, albeit of course Harper's still yet to make that stop. Forsyth could be in for a move here. So you have been bouncing on kind of in the same areas, not necessarily wheel to wheel, but within 5 seconds of one another for the vast majority of this race. It was Forsyth with a much longer pit stop. I think Forsyth took tyres at that last pit stop. 100% sure it's 26 seconds, which is kind of the minimum time you can take for tyres at a pit stop. George, meanwhile, only taking fuel, so you would expect Forsyth to have the pace advantage at this point in the race. As we've got Chancellor into the pits from P12, and I think this might be his second pit stop of the race, so this is going to be it for Chancellor. Did he even stop there, Daniel? I didn't even see him stop there.
No, it was very quick in and out there. It was 2.3 seconds, so only just coming to a stop, getting a little bit of fuel in and back underway. So very quick move there for himself, and he'll have his teammate closing in just behind, as we see a couple of the tricky sports cars continuing their fight, and Nathan Huppert's finally into the lane after 47 minutes out on track. It's a hell of a run for him there.
But it should be quick to the end. Should Nathan Huppert's. And I guess the big question is, how much fuel does he put into the car? He should be able to, might fuel it up for to go to maybe the hour and 10 mark. As Collins is going to take the lead for a bit. Warwick and Chico Vizara also coming into the pits. So this is great news right now for Ashley Collins. And yeah, comfortable lead that he inherits at this point of the race. Of course, yet to pit. And yeah, Huppert's coming up to 31, 32, 33. If he comes out now, he would be very close. So Giles here was batting earlier on. And in fact, this is going to be close between him, Dyson, Thomas, and Healy. How ahead is he of these guys, or is he behind? He is just behind. So he'll have fresher tyres now, Will Huppert, but he is behind. Andrew Dyson is ahead of Healy though, so it's not bad for Huppert's there, but he has lost that track position to Dyson right there.
And Davison as well. I mean, though Davison and Dyson were behind prior to that first round of pit stops taking their way through. So it's a lot of work for Huppert's here to do, but he's the best placed of all the drivers on the newest set of rubber in that top 5. So definitely room for him to come back through. And he is already starting to close up on the back of Dyson very quickly through the back markers, and closes right up on Andrew Dyson now, and should be able to make a bit of advantage of the draft down the back straight.
It did seem like Huppert's was the second fastest man on circuit earlier on in the race when he had the fresh tyres. Hopefully he can kind of recreate that pace now at the start of this stint. It was just as the stint went on, which he started to struggle increasingly more. His pit stop, Huppert's, and Dyson's pit stop almost identical. Dyson with 38 seconds stationary, Huppert's 37 seconds stationary. So they are on pretty much identical strategies. The only difference, the fact that Huppert should be able to go. Well, in fact, they will have to make their second pit stop at the same time, and Huppert's will have fresher tyres to the end of the race. As we see, Scott Forsyth already dealt with a couple of drives. Next up on his list is Barnes. You can see the 4x, 11x, 5x, 7x, 13x. That is our calculation of how many off-tracks these drivers have picked up. Now, that's not 100% accurate because it's not the iRacing system, but it does give you a rough indication of who's been extending track limits. And so the higher the number, probably the more likely the drivers are going to have to getting an off track. And you can see, well, at least Barnes, quite a few more than Forsyth.
And I mean, a lot of those for Barnes will unfortunately be due to those incidents that he's had along the way. There's been a couple of hip and shoulder moves, and we saw the Ferrari go across the nose off the back of the final corner. So a little awkward for him, but he will continue on, and as we ride on board, not really using a huge amount of the track. The biggest one I was surprised at was keeping an eye on Ross Rizzo in that exchange. Very few off tracks picked up by the timing software, and to run at the pace that he was able to run at, extend to the gap that he was able to do, very clean, cool, consistent driving from him there.
So this is a stop and hold for Mikolev. He has already served a drive-through penalty, I think, in this race as Mikolev, and this was an incident from a while back, I think lap 15.
So watch Mikolev here. Doesn't look too bad as he worked his way down through the S's, and I think that one was all well and good. Here's a look back at Shane Chancellor. This should be the telltale of what was the result of that drive-through penalty, and just picks up the inside and rotates Mikolev around again on the final corner. So a few guys making some big dives into that to try and get that extra position gained.
Davison now 1.6 seconds clear of Ross Rizzo, out in the lead of this race. The gap between the two of them kind of maintaining in recent laps. And Ross Grizze always plays it by the percentages. Probably, I imagine, going on in his head is thinking that whilst Davidson it has got track position at the moment, he's got to take a lot more fuel later on in the race. Therefore, so he should be in a good position to overtake when it comes to the second pit stops. So may as well just stay behind at the moment, keep tabs with the race leader, and then pass Davidson as he has to stay in the pits longer later on in the race. We are expecting, judging from their first pit stop times, Rizzo to be stationed for about 9 seconds shorter than Davidson out in the lead. So as long as he stays within 9 seconds, Rizzo, he should be able to retake the lead here. You can see 1.6 seconds well within that window at the moment. Davidson going to have to be pitting certainly in the next 10 minutes or so. I think probably about 5 minutes away from Davidson's second pit stop here.
Yeah, and just watching the way Rizzo has been able to close down the gap, even after taking the little bit extra fuel and tyres, he's been very much on a mission and very consistent as far as the pace concerned. So since he set that blistering lap, he's only dropped a tenth of a second behind, and not really giving much up onto it. As we drop back here to third and fourth position, Andrew Dyson and Nathan Huppert's still continuing that fight on, and Huppert's now looking for room to send the C8 back through, and it's a big task here, but you see the drive the Porsche able to get from those slow stop-start corners of turn one, and able to give himself a nice little bit of a buffer as they head down through the S's, and the guys slaloming through, watching those little yellow bollards on the inside. You don't want to pick them up, because we've already seen they will send you hard off into the walls if you do. But both these cars very equally matched as they work their way through. Just a little bit of a mid-corner slide there for Dyson, and that allows Hupperts to close right back in on him as they head towards the back straight.
Slightly late to apex for Hupperts, but a bit hesitant to get on the throttle there. And he'll do well to make a move here. 3.5 tenths of a second. Seems to have a decent amount of straight line speed though here, Hupperts. Certainly the time is going down, but you can't really see it visually, him closing in. And yeah, backs out of it again. So not being confident enough, runs slightly wide does Dyson. Can't help but feel like if Hupperts can't get the move done in these first few laps, he's going to struggle to make it later on. At the same time, he doesn't want to waste too much time battling this one, because they would still like to beat Davison, who of course has to have a longer second stop, albeit Davison of course is currently clear of these drivers. Should be stationed for about 10 more seconds in the stop should Davison. He's about 15 seconds clear of these drivers at the moment. Gap opens up to half a second as Forsyth and Barnes are very close to one another. Almost an overtake for Forsyth, but a mistake all of a sudden for the Aries Motorsport driver, and he drops back to a second behind.
Yeah, it's very easy to see once you make those little bit of a mistakes just how quick the time extends, and he will close back in and get another opportunity to see whether he can challenge for that position as Warwick and Chikavara come back to start their little exchange again, down for 8th position. And for Chikavara, it's been a good recovery drive after the earlier self-spin that he had at the end of the back straight there to come back through and challenge inside that top 10 again. And he's been very quick in that C8, definitely suiting his driving style, as he just about a tenth slower last time by than Warwick. So he's in with a good chance to start gaining his way back up. And if he can get through, that'll leave Tom Huggan the next contender for him.
He's recovered well, as Chica Pizzara so far in this race. Still very segregated are the colours on the screen. We've got 7 purples and then 4 greens. So I quite like it that to stay the same at the moment. So Huggan's decently far clear of these drivers as they just negotiate the back marker It's going to be an opportunity for Chica Bizarra by the end of this straight. With the overspeed, they should be able to attain over his rival. Not very quick down the straight, and actually just pulling out of the jar for a moment, so not going for the move. These guys with very similar first pit stops. In fact, these guys haven't taken tyres so far in this race. They were stationary for 15 and 16 seconds in their pit stop. That's pretty odd, Daniel. Especially if we think the C8 isn't very good on its tyres. To go the full first hour without taking tyres, I'd be thinking, why not take some tyres right now? I mean, you want to, drain the tank of some fuel, but, well, these guys at least will be very quick at the end of the race. Can't help but feel, though, that they're losing that extra pace of the fresh tyres right now.
Definitely losing the pace that you would have had from that fresh set of tyres, but controlling the pace very, very good here at the moment. I mean, for Che Guevara, we'll wait to see what it gets as he crosses the line this time by, but last time was a 2:03.64. It was a tenth slower than for Paul Warwick, and as they work their way across the line again now, they're just starting to hemorrhage a little bit of time, so expect them in the next lap or two to probably complete that final stop, get the fresh boots on and press forward again. But they are in a very good spot here, especially taking tyres in that latest phase of the race. They should look to be very, very quick. As we see Forsyth continuing through. Ashley Collins, we haven't really spoke of him out there so far. Been a very good drive, did take control of the race as the pit stop cycled through. And very good, consistent run here at the moment. Did take tyres on the last pit stop and pressing on nicely.
We've had an issue for Trent Thomas in 6th position, or now sixth position. He's had quite a big off, which has lost him best part of 10 seconds, I think. 9 seconds he lost in the first sector. And here it was for Trent Thomas. We've already seen one driver hit the curb on the inside here. Is this the same story? Oh, he's hit the second curb. Oh, that's just lack of concentration, I think, there, Dan. I mean, there was really no attempt to even avoid that curb. He can't complain about that one. He hit that curb and some, and that's going to be damaged until he makes his next pit stop.
Yeah, it's been a weird one. He's tipped the car in very early and just probably picked up the tipping point maybe a couple of meters earlier than he normally would have, and you can already see the damage that the front fender has from the contact with the bollard there, and very uncharacteristic for Trent, and he will come down the lane now to get the stop, and we'll see whether there's any repairs that come as a result of that one. Che Guevara now into the lane. This will be the final time tonight. We should see tyres go on this car as he works his way through, and I would expect Warwick will be probably in the next lap to try and cover this move off.
Yeah, that'd probably be smart to do that, especially seeing that Joel is going to have the fresh tyres as well. And those fresh tyres usually give you a real boost for a couple of laps. So, this could be big from Joel here. And we've seen overtaking as a premium on the most part tonight. And so, if you can get it done in the pits, that is quite a luxury for yourself. Barnes is going to move past Chica Bizarra, I believe. He'll be stationary for a little while, Chica Bizarra, probably about the best part of 35 seconds. No, totally wrong. 29 seconds. So actually, that 16 seconds of fuel he took earlier on, that was enough. So these guys who took 10 seconds of fuel, just most of the front runners, I mean, all the tricky esports guys took 10 seconds of fuel earlier on. They're literally going to be stationed for like 6 seconds at their next pit stop. It's going to be a very short stop for them to get to the end of the race. As Davison into the pit, so he stretched that fuel as long as he could. Remember, he took only a couple of seconds of fuel at his first pit stop. He led for a while, did Davison. Couldn't open up the gap to Rizzo, though. But Davison's certainly my favourite to get second position out here, because he had been able to build up a decent gap over Dyson and Huppert. The highest running driver who's made 2 pit stops is Trent Thomas, but obviously Thomas had that spin, so Davison will be well clear of Trent Thomas, I'm sure. He'll be a little bit by himself for the time being.
And one thing we didn't see there either was Paul Warwick had a bit of a moment. Ashley Collins right over the gearbox now of that Porsche. So not sure whether that was a little bit of a result of Che Guevara coming in for his stop, as we see Rizzo continue on for another one. Warwick now in the lane also. So as we sort of thought, those two stops for himself and Che Guevara coming within a lap of each other. And Collins will now be able to press on. Huggins doing a very strong job here at the moment for the Mach 1 Esports team, and just going about his business very quietly here, picking up the pace. He hasn't been the quickest car out there, but very consistent over the course of this run.
Yeah, he's kept his head down, and with that mistake for Thomas, he could legitimately get his 6th position in this race. Could Huggin after all this maybe able to keep Dawson behind for too long. I'd say that actually this could be problematic for Dawson, because Dawson's they've got similar age tyres, I believe, but Huggin's got much less fuel. And you know, these cars aren't exactly particularly fuel sensitive, but even maybe 10 minutes worth of fuel, that can still be a tenth or two, and I don't think Dawson's much more than kind of 3 or 4 tenths of a lap faster than Huggins. So this could be problematic for Dawson. He wants to get past nice and quick, but could get held behind Huggin for a little while, because we saw Dawson get held behind. Apologies, yeah, Dawson was held behind upwards for a little bit earlier on in the race. Here comes Forsyth. He has got involved in something. So this was, I think, the incident that you were alluding to before, Daniel. And well, at least on that one was all right, but I think something else was the problem for him.
Yeah, Forsyth there, just a bit of an exchange between the teammates, and the other one was Paul Warwick, so we didn't get a chance to look back at that one, but either way, we did pick up an incident, and we see the teammates just working their way through. 4:02, see who that is out there. That's Lucas Milikoff. Will have a drive-through penalty for result of contact, and we saw him getting involved in the contact a little earlier on. So still continuing on, race control doing a very good job. We have checked over the hour mark. We missed that 5 minutes ago, but less than 25 minutes to go here for these guys to come home for what has been a very good race so far for those guys that are out there.
Yeah, maybe not quite as on edge as maybe Suzuka. We really didn't know what was going to happen till the very end, and of course Monza as well, with the craziness we saw at Monza, as we see I think Mikolev's incident why he's got this drive-through penalty. But still a pretty good one. It's been really interesting as well to see kind of the tyre wear for all these drivers seemingly playing quite some parts in this race, and has been a little bit more of an easier to understand race with a few less drivers. Easier to see what's going on. Here was the mistake from Mikolev. Well, he kind of got past, then he locked up the brakes, and then the stewards deeming that he was at fault for the collision with the Porsche, so certainly been a race to forget for the M4 Sport driver.
He sent that one from a long way back, so lucky that it wasn't a bigger incident for either of those two there. So we'll get back underway. As you see, Dylan Whitworth having another quiet run for him, has gained 4 spots so far tonight, so very quiet drive for him down the order, and just picking up points as he needs to. And but disadvantage, it's gone away a little bit for him here, 3 seconds slower than what his best has been, but just plodding along quite nicely.
Got Collins into the pits. He was leading for a moment earlier on. So he's taken his first and second stops, Collins, within a very similar amount of time to one another. And in fact, he's one of the earliest drivers to come into the pits after taking a 36-second first pit stop time. Seemingly, most of the drivers out here have taken a 36-second long first pit stop. That's 10 seconds worth of fuel. So he should be stationed for about 6 seconds here, Collins, and he's stationed for 11 seconds. That's a bit longer than I thought it would be, to be honest. So, well, maybe that's a reference. Maybe later on that the pit stops will be longer than I had thought for the second stop. But Collins out behind Yeeman, who has made 2 pit stops himself as Yeeman. So that is properly for position. Dale's going to be in some big points actually. 8th position currently occupied for him. So yeah, pretty much everyone from 5th down has taken 2 pit stops. It's just the top 4 and a couple of others further down the order who have still got 1 more stop to make.
As the time ticks away, those guys will really start thinking about where they want to come in for their respective stops. And looking at from the times we're seeing from Rizzo at the moment, the tyre hasn't fallen away too much. Not sure if we can just quickly check, see the current track conditions at the moment. But yeah, there we go. Thank you, Mr. Newton, for that one. Track continuing to cool off, so that is helping these guys a little bit more as it continues on for the remainder of the race, down to 34 degrees. So we've seen almost 8 degrees wiped off the track state at the moment, and that is only boding well for these guys to keep pressing on with some good lap times, as Davison has now gotten ahead of Tom Huggan. And he did that through the final corner as the guys worked their way up into turn 1.
Seemingly a mistake from Huggan, or maybe paying him to get out of the way. Oh, what's that from Huggan? Come on, mate. Missing the corner there. It's a very tricky final corner, but that is an odd mistake there from Tom Huggan. Davison's passed then, and that will be a relief for him. He is, at the moment, 18 seconds behind Hupperts. Well, he's going to be able to overtake Hupperts, isn't he? I mean, Rizzo is going to stay ahead, one would expect, by quite a comfortable margin, but Hupperts is surely going to be losing out to Danny Davison, who didn't have a very good qualifying today. So, I mean, he did qualify up in P3, I think, but didn't really have much pace in the early stages, and since then has driven very, very strongly. And, well, looking like another second place at the moment for Davison, with Hupperts and Healy still yet to come into the pits. But we hold our breaths to see what's going to happen. Did we see, we're now on lap 35, did we see Dyson come into the pits earlier on down? Just trying to figure out why Dyson is so far back, because he's 13 seconds behind Davison. Am I forgetting something that happened to Dyson, or is it just the fact that Dyson's been that much slower than Davison for a while?
No, well, he has completed his second stop tonight, so that will have dropped him back into the clutches. But yeah, he's completed both pit stops at this point. It was about 17 seconds he was in the lane for, so not too bad for him. Just watching the replay as he brings the car into the pit lane. This one a little less spectacular than what we saw the first time through, although it does actually make a bit of contact with the wall there, so maybe a little more spectacular in the end. But yeah, he has come into to complete that second stop. For Hupperts, though, the gap is still sitting at 30 seconds at this point, so Huppert's going to have to be very cautious here that he doesn't give away too much more time, because we have seen guys come through and around that 30-second mark to complete their pit stops.
So Dyson would have been able to pick up a faster pair right after that collision with the wall, but he needs to get some practice in, honestly. I mean, that's not even that tricky. It is quite a tricky pit entry. I'll give him that. You know, you do need to carry quite a bit, so you need to have some bravery about yourself. But that's seemingly a weakness for him. Still don't know how he didn't crash the first time, and well, if he did, maybe we could have even had a pit lane blockage. I don't really know what the protocol would have been in that scenario. But yeah, Dyson then, yeah, not really doing anything wrong, just not with the pace of Danny Davison since those early stages when it looked like Dyson was actually faster than Davison. But since then, yeah, Davison really in a different league in comparison. Huggan, of course, still yet to come into the pits though, and could still be close between Hupperts and Dyson, albeit I think Hupperts should be clear I assume. Yeah, we'll see. Their times are pretty similar. We've got a spinner right there. That is a Pete Minette, just with a slight pivot right there. He's back on his way. We've got 17 more minutes of this race to go, and well, the drivers who haven't pitted yet will surely be coming up to the limit of the fuel. Maybe another 5 minutes they can go, but that'll be really the extent. I'm surprised they've even got this far, to be honest.
They've done very well to extend the range as long as they have. I mean, we did see early on one of the cars there, I think it was Ashley Collins, getting out to just over an hour without fuel in the C8. So it is possible for the guys to extend the range if they're careful on it. But yeah, it's a long way to try and get home without putting more fuel in the tank.
That's how the gap has grown. Decent effort from Harputz there, but consistently losing about 0.8 of a second a lap. I bet the last couple of laps are a little bit closer than the previous ones. Harputz will be pushing like mad at the moment. Remember, he's still battling with Davison, or probably not Davison, but he's still battling with Dyson at the moment to beat him. Healy 7 seconds behind. Uzo, meanwhile, probably cruising. This is going to be one of his easier endurance race wins. That they always come quite tricky. Barber, I recall last season, a brilliant endurance race where it was so tricky to overtake, and Rizzo got mega lucky with the safety car where it came out. He was fortunate that he'd had a spin earlier on in the race, and that meant he could take 2 pit stops during the safety car period. Then had to spend pretty much the rest of the race cooped up behind some midfield drivers, but that early pit stop saved him and was able to win that race. But yeah, they do tend to be quite tricky, but this one much more simple for him. And yeah, one of the most tricky circuits we have on iRacing. Really is a great test for a driver's skill, this one. Warwick then was behind Chica Visaria after that pit stop. And so 0.7 of a second is the gap. However, Warwick was faster on that last lap. Both of these guys taking their tyres very late in the race, so will be very quick in comparison to the other drivers. I don't think they'll be able to catch up to anyone else further up. Pretty much everyone within a minute of them ahead has already taken their second pit stop. But should be a nice battle between these guys, because Warwick is looking that bit more aggressive right now. Looks a little bit faster than the C8 up the road.
Definitely, he should be able to hold on pretty comfortably here. Chica Visaria, remember, came in that one lap earlier and really has paid dividends for him, being able to get onto those fresher tyres and use the pace advantage that he had early on as he's worked his way through it. This gap sitting just short of 0.9 of a second as they come up to the start-finish line to complete lap 37. But looking very, very good for both of these guys to finish up in some good with a good haul of points.
Small lock-up for Chica Visaria right there, but should still be alright for him. Had that spin earlier on in the race, if you recall, down at turn 11, but has driven error-free since then. Really was a straight mistake, took way too much speed into the left-handed hairpin, and that spelled disaster for him. Big thanks to SDK Gaming for sponsoring this broadcast, of course. SDK Gaming providing our overlay for us, which you can see on screen. Obviously, you can do loads of customization. That's the best thing about SDK Gaming. You can pretty much make it look however you want it. Anyone's that's seen our AOSC Super Series broadcasts in the past, as Hagen comes into the pits, you can see just how different it is. And there's loads of templates as well. A NASCAR template, F1, of course, which is kind of similar to the one that you're seeing on screen at the moment. Then there might be a GP2 one as well, which is pretty cool. And then from there on, you can make all the customization you want on it. So you do get SDK Gaming, and you can also use it as a heads-up display, and it's also fantastic as if you're streaming your races as well, to give info to your viewers. So yeah, do check out sdkgaming.com to have a 14-day free trial of this fantastic software.
Danny Davison looking pretty comfortable here in that fourth spot. A little bit of lap traffic that he's going to have to start contending with. It's one of the Aries Motorsports cars there, so that shouldn't get in the way too much, I wouldn't assume.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too bad for Davison here. Yeah, that's a good effort there from the Ferraris who gets out of the way. Rizzo into the pits, and maybe that will open the floodgates for the pits for these rest of the top three to come on in to make the final pit stop of this race. Also, Mikola and Whitworth apparently have not made their second pit stop yet in this race. Huppert's also opting in. So the big question now is, can Huppert stay ahead of Dyson? We expect him to be behind Davison. To be honest with Huppert, I kind of think he's going to be sandwiched in between Davison and Dyson. I don't think he's going to be too near to the pair of them. Rizzo already out of the pits. Huppert's being overtaken by Healy, who continues on for another lap. Can Davison get past? Davison is passing now. Can Huppert stay ahead of Dyson? This is the big question for him. He was stationed for 10 seconds right there. Here comes Dyson. Dyson's going to be behind. It will be Huppert who holds on to that position, and that could well be P3. It's a bit closer than I thought, but still 3 seconds between the two of them. So nice work there from Huppert. Those two were very evenly matched when Dyson made his first pit stop, but Huppert has pulled off some good lap times there, and should be third place in store for him now.
And Huppert's almost with a big moment through the S's there, has a big wiggle, able to get the car back under him, but that could have been a disastrous moment there for him. But interesting to see as those guys came in for their respective final pit stops. Ross Rizzo, very short fuel run, 6.8 seconds of fuel going into the Trick Esports Ford. For Huppert, I think you might have mentioned it there, Sam, 10.28 seconds. It's a lot of fuel going on there to get these cars home for the final 10 minutes. So Huppert's really trying to wring the neck out of this one.
Yeah, and Dyson even longer. So you can see this is quite insightful. This graphic, you can see how long each driver was stationary in the pits. Yeah, I mean, Dyson was stationary for a lot longer than the others, wasn't he? Because 1 second longer in his first pit stop, and then 6 seconds longer in his second pit stop. So that's 7 seconds total. As a maths genius, that adds up to 7 seconds longer, which obviously makes the world of difference right there. So I'm really curious as to why he was so much longer in the pits there. Dyson must have massively overfueled or something, because well, if you recall, he was in the draft of Davison the entire first stint, so there's really no excuse for that. So yeah, very strange on that one. Rizzo, meanwhile, the shortest of anyone, I think, just about 44 seconds stationary across those two pit stops. Meanwhile, Warwick and Chikavazara battling right now, and this is Chikavazara actually losing the position to Warwick. So he got it done, did Joel, during the second pit stops, but he's been done again as the Fishy Motorsports driver who moves back up into the top 10. I'm a little bit surprised about that one, Daniel, as we might be able to catch a replay of how this one occurred.
It's as they drop down to the back straight, a little bit of lap traffic to contend with as well. Warwick sends one down the inside. It's a nice move, and just forces Chikavazara a little wide there. And the drive that the Porsche has in the back there does help him get away. Good awareness from that lap down Porsche, just to stay to the side, let these guys continue their fight uninterrupted. And for Warwick, having that inside line in through the stadium section there paid dividends for him. He was able to complete the pass very nicely on the brakes there. So great little exchange for these two, and I'm sure that we're going to see this fight continue on for the final 8 minutes of this race. So
Dyson sets in the fastest lap of the race on that last time round, with those Well, it's not even fresh tyres, is it? He was, yeah, just he's been out there for ages as Dyson. You know, this is his 10th lap of this stint. Took tyres ages ago, but igniting all of a sudden. I don't know where was the space 5 minutes ago when he needed it to stay ahead of Huppert's, but well, he's using it now. The gap's down to 1.5 seconds to Huppert's now, and he'll try to overtake him. Healy into the pit, so that will promote both of these drivers up a place, I imagine. But how long will Healy be stationary in the pit stop? He's not yet got to his pit stop, Healy, so yeah, these guys should be well clear of Healy. He'll be stationary for about 5-6 seconds, I imagine, as these guys race past him. And yeah, Healy to come out in 5th place ahead of Trent Thomas. Thomas hadn't have had that spin earlier on. Remember, through the S's, he would have probably been battling with these guys. But that spin really did cost him, and instead Healy maintains that 5th position. So good work there from the Ferrari driver. Should be able to hang on to that one to the end. But well, I'm not so sure if Huppert's can hang on to this one, Daniel, because Dyson looks finally back alive again. But I'm perplexed to put in such a phenomenal lap time like that, a 2-minute 1.5. If he just delivered a couple of them a few laps ago, he would have been clear of Huppert's when Huppert's made his pit stop. So I don't know if Dyson thought that he was well clear or something, but he's really let this one get away.
Well, the track has continued to cool down, so that definitely assisting here. But long time on these tyres. We're down to 32 degrees. So another couple of degrees have come out of the track so far. But catching one thing, passing is another thing. And Nathan Huppert's, we saw earlier on, just positioning the car beautifully in front of Danny Davison when it was Dyson and Davison battling on there. And no reason to think that Nathan's not going to do the same thing again. If Dyson's able, though, to fire one up the inside, similar to what we saw from Warwick on Chikavara, that might be a little bit of a different story, however, because we know the Porsche very good from those slow speed corners. But yeah, Huppert's going to be a very tricky competitor to try and get through, even though the pace advantage at the moment currently sitting with Andrew Dyson.
Dyson is lighting up the time screens at the moment. Fastest second sector, fastest third sector. And these are on old tyres. As you say, Dan, I think it's a very good point you make. You know, cooler track temperatures now that the grip will be increasing. But, I mean, still, this is remarkable right now from Dyson. He does a 21.3. Not his, that is his fastest lap of the race, I believe. It wasn't a clean lap. He did pick up a 1x, but it's still very quick. And so here he comes. He's taken about 3 seconds out of Huppert's in the course of 3 laps. And it's now all about if he can make this overtake. Will be tricky. I've got to side with him at the moment. 4 minutes to go, and of course the race leader 25 seconds up the road may well force us one more lap than we otherwise would have had. Yeah, so it'll be this lap and then 2 more, won't it? So will be there's plenty of time for Dyson to make this one. Could he even have a go into turn 11? Looks like he's a bit too far back this time, so he tries to straighten up the car coming out of turn 10.
Very good on the brakes down into that final corner before we hit the back straight there. The car dancing a lot as he tries to get the power down, but Huppert's still maintaining to hold that little bit of an advantage. Not much in it as far as top line speed is concerned between either of these cars, as Dyson just picks up the rear brakes just a fraction there on corner entry and has to catch that slide again. But these two very evenly matched at the moment.
Quick shout out as well to Apex Racing Academy, who are also sponsoring this broadcast. Apex Racing Academy with 29 data sets on the roads and also rallycross circuits. Doing 29 different cars across those 2 disciplines, providing setups, driver tuition, group driver sessions, and also telemetry as well. Apex Racing Academy, very usable as well. It downloads all the setups for you, so you don't have to move it about between your file directories, you can just just download the software, downloads all the setups for you when you load it into the session. And it's some very nice kit. So do go check out Apex Racing Academy right now. You can get a subscription with just £5 per month. Dyson 0.2 of a second behind. He's closing in through the S's, which is tricky to do even in these cars. You know, there's a little bit of a turbulent air, and yet Dyson just is overwhelmingly faster right now. But actually, just think the final part of those S's not quite as convincing. He's closer than he was though, 0.2 of a second faster through sector 1, a bit slower through sector 2, but he's half a tenth quicker, half a tenth closer than he was on the last lap. Takes a wide line. But this is a good exit here, Daniel. This could be the move, and I think Huppert's senses say he's trying to break the draft.
He's well awake to it. Nathan's jinxed the car a little bit over on the initial part of the run. And going to hold the line here down into the braking zone. I think that's a smart move, not moving the car around. But Dyson from a long way back sends the one down the inside. Huppets tries to crisscross to get it through. It's a little bit of contact there, I think, between them. But Dyson able to get that car up into third position. And he sent that one from a long way back. Huppets really awake, and fortunately no one getting collected in that exchange.
Brilliant move there. I've been waiting for one of those dives so far in this race. We haven't seen a whole lot of them. You can see one from Rorik on Chica Bizarra, but that's been about it. But that's what you can do around Kota. And, good driving there from Hubbers. So close to making contact. I mean, I guess Hubbers could argue that he didn't leave him a car's width on the outside, but, he was clear, I think, by the time they got to the apex was Dyson. So he's clear, and he's up into third position, and that will be a very satisfying third position for him. And, I think Davison had the pace on him tonight, but still, third position is an awesome effort. Massive shame for Huppers, though, of course, running so comfortably in second place in the early stages. Just has not had the pace at the back end of either of these stints so far in this race. Scott Forsyth now 0.6 of a second behind Chancellor. He's taking a very unorthodox move, as in fact they are letting the leader go. So these are the two teammates, and working together. They're battling against one another. But, well, if you're going to keep on slowing down, mate, I'm going to opt on past, and that is Forsyth who gets past Chancellor right there.
Yeah, imagine a little bit of a team exchange there on the radio, just to see Forsyth dive through and continue on, but great awareness not to impede the race leader as he continued to work his way through. So it's been another supremely confident run here from Ross Rizzo, and another notch in the belt at another circuit, and really has put a stranglehold now on this championship.
Yeah, we'll say that he's won it at the end of the last round, but he's already won it, very much. I mean, he's been dominant this season, just as he was last season as well. And it's going to be yet another endurance race victory. Ross Rizzo wins at the circuit of the Americas. The penultimate round of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series Season 14 goes his way. Rizzo takes the spoils. Davison with a very good second position. Another very smart strategic call there not to take fuel at the first stop. Oh, Dyson has to avoid the stricken car right at the end and finishes in third position, beating Huppert right there. It was Shane Griffin with that spin. Healy holds off Thomas for 5th and 6th. Hagen will be in a lonely 7th. And we've still got a battle going on. This is apologies, this isn't a battle. This is Collins. Just trying to make sure that he negotiates some of the traffic well. Yeoman will be top of the pro drivers. Collins very much under the radar. We have looked at him a couple of times so far in this race, but these two with a very nice performance to come home in 8th and 9th. Oh, I hope that 1x hasn't pushed him over the limit, where it's 8th place for Yeoman, at least at the line. Warwick finishing in, Yeoman in 8th. Collins in 9th, and Warwick to beat Chica Bizarra. Chica Bizarra actually having problems near the end of the race, seemingly a couple of laps ago. Must have fallen a bit further back. because those guys were close, but 20 seconds in the end, the gap between the two of them. Yeah, I really enjoyed that race actually, and that reminded me a bit of a Formula One race, to be honest. You know, we had a slightly diminished field. You know, not everyone was necessarily battling everyone, but it kind of gave us time to really analyze what each of the drivers were doing, and it kind of showed off the format that we have in these endurance meetings. The fact that you have to take tasks, the fact that you have to pit twice. Really is an extra element, and for that race, I think it was a fantastic format for the drivers to deal with.
Absolutely, I think it really made the strategy calls a lot more unique and really brought out the best of the drivers and what their race engineers were able to put together for them. And we saw some very interesting strategies that we questioned very early on. The guys taking tires on the first stop, I was definitely scratching my head going, well, you're crazy, why would you want to do that? But it's worked out exceptionally well for them. Through the mid-pack again, we saw some awesome battling right through there, and a lot of guys punching well above their weight. Good, clean driving. We did see a few little issues, but really, really well-controlled race for all involved.
Yeah, and we should be able to go through your final results then after 90 minutes of action here at the Circuit of the Americas. Ross Rizzo wins out. 12.5 seconds clear of Danny Davison. Andrew Dyson making that late move on Nathan Huppers for 3rd position. Michael Healy finished in 4th, and it was Trent Thomas, Tom Hagen, Daniel Yearman, Ashley Collins, and Paul Warwick rounding out the top 10. Then it was Joel Chigafizara in 11th place, Scott Forsyth in 12th. There was Shane Chancellor, Todd George, Cam Walker, Pete Minette, Justin Quinn, Lucas Mikalev, Craig Mason, Tristan Kosh, Dylan Whitworth, Shane Griffin, Chris Barnes, Neil Yates, Braden O'Loughlin, Jacob Meyer, Adrian Vlog, and that was the 27 cars, I believe, who took the start of the race. So I think Vlog unfortunately had some hardware issues before the race, which is a massive shame. Hopefully we'll see Adrian Black next week. He's usually very strong in these endurance meetings. So we've got a few drivers actually to have a chat with, but first up, I think we're going to have a chat with our race winner, Ross Rizzo. He takes another endurance race victory, this time at the Circuit of the Americas. Congratulations, Ross. First up, we'll go back earlier on in the week. This was the mystery round. When you found out that the mystery round was at Circuit of the Americas, were you pleased? You can be honest with this one.
I was a little deflated because I think, like everyone else, we were hoping for a street circuit and preferably Long Beach, but and of all places to then have a different round, COTA is definitely one of the least popular ones. Personally, I don't mind it, but it is incredibly frustrating when practicing, so I wasn't looking forward to the practice mode this week. But once I kind of got into the rhythm, I was pretty happy, and the pace definitely reflected that tonight.
Yeah, in those early stages, what were you thinking of Nathan Harper's? Because the first couple of laps, it was really close from you guys, and then you pulled away. I mean, can you identify how you managed to, why it was so close initially, and then the fact that you managed to pull away? Can you identify why that was the case?
I think I was struggling to drive to the conditions. Like, admittedly, it was only about 3-4 degrees hotter than practice, but all of my braking zones and turn-in points, they just weren't working. So I was scratching my head where the pace was going, and was expecting a move from Nathan at any moment. But then it eventually calmed down, and got the rhythm back, and then started to pull away. But yeah, I think there was a lot of times where I was either under driving or over driving to the conditions, and it took me a few laps longer than I would have hoped to get into the groove. But once I was there, the pace kind of spoke for itself.
Talk us about the choice to pit when you did for that first pit stop. It was about 38 minutes into the race. Was that something you planned beforehand? What was kind of the logic behind that?
Well, yeah, about half an hour was about where I wanted to pit to kind of protect off any safety cars and whatnot. And I noticed Danny came out into a really nice clean bit of air, so I was aiming for that spot. But actually came out way too close to Danny for my liking. But it was a blessing in disguise, because then I was able to match my pace to Danny, and that was when I noticed, hang on, he's found some real pace here. I'm struggling to keep up. So I knew suddenly, Danny was suddenly in the running with Andrew and Nathan. So I was like, well, this has actually worked out really well. That if I keep pace to Danny, then I should have Nathan and Andrew covered.
How tricky was it to keep the incidents down around this track? Were you having to think about it through the race? Because in the end, you only got 7, which is quite impressive.
Yeah, this place is just as brutal, if not more brutal, than Spa, and it was one of the first things I thought about was managing that incident point limit. So practice, it was quite tricky to try to restrain myself to make sure I wasn't overstepping the marks, and it gives out incident points kind of like at the wrong point, at the wrong spots, like on the entry to some corners, but not on the exits of others and things like that. And you have to experiment quite a lot. But yeah, then it was a case of just showing restraint, and still I was picking them up quite a lot. So yeah, please to only get away with 7 and avoid any points, penalties, or drive-throughs.
Absolutely. Congratulations, Ross, on another endurance race winner. I mean, we may as well just give all of the next season's endurance race wins to yourself, because you seem to win every single one of them. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
So quick thank you to Apex Racing TV for the broadcast, and to AMF GT, and of course to my boys at Trick Esports, Trick Custom Fabrications, and Pro Sim Gear. And a big shout out to Michael Healy, that he's basically did his last race on the current wheel that he's got, because it fell apart during practice, and he's persevered with a wheel that's hardly working and managed 5th place. It's just superhuman what he managed to do. So can't wait to see what he's like when he can upgrade his gear. And I think he gave that old G27 a decent send off with 5th place tonight. So congrats to Michael.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having a chat with us, Ross, and we will see you back next week.
Right, thanks very much, guys.
So that was Ross Rizze, your race winner tonight. Second up, I think we're going to have our second place man, Daniel. It's Danny Davison.
Thanks, Danny. Congratulations, mate. Fantastic drive for yourself and the EXG team tonight. Talk us through your run there. We saw off the start, you found yourself in a phenomenal battle with Andrew Dyson over 3rd position. And just prior to your pit stop there, you managed to close the gap right up on the back of Nathan Huppert's there. What were your thoughts going into that one? Because it looked like the Porsche a little bit late maybe to get up to speed, but kept the consistency very nice underneath you.
Yeah, I noticed at the beginning of the stint, I was actually struggling for pace compared to those guys, and that's why I dropped back. And as the stint went on, I think Nathan was struggling with tyre wear, but I was generally still just sliding around everywhere. That's why I decided to take an early pit stop on fresh tyres to give me a chance to jump those guys. And I was able to start doing some really fast laps, and I think the temperatures of the track dropped as well. So I actually started really making a gap on them, and that's basically what enabled me to get ahead of those guys in the race, and eventually, yeah. But unfortunately, I wasn't quick enough to challenge Ross, unfortunately, again. But yeah, did my best.
Well, you definitely surprised us with the alternate strategy. I don't think either Sam or myself really thought that anyone was going to come in as early as you did, because I believe you were one of the first guys that came through the lane. But then to also take the tyres at that point was not something we were expecting. I know we've seen a lot in these endurance races, the guys pick up the tyres over that second stop. It looked like when you came in and took those tyres, there's not a huge amount of fuel going in the car, and that puts you in a really good spot, as we just heard from Ross there, where you're able to really drive the car nicely. Were you worried about fuel and strategy later on with the second stop still looming?
Well, I didn't put any fuel in the first stop, so that's why I was quick. I just wanted to get on fresh tyres. I mean, sort of try to split up the race with fresh tyres sort of makes sense to me. Just gives me a chance to go as fast as possible, because I had to change the strategy to get ahead of Andrew and Nathan. So that's why I just had to roll the dice, I guess you could say. The only issue was late in the race, my tyres were going to be more worn than them. But I was hoping I had a big enough gap to be safe from that, which is what happened. So that's basically what was my strategy. And yeah.
Well, it definitely worked out really well for you. I think too was the track conditions came down, probably helped save those tyres just a fraction there. Next week we're off to Sebring, final round of the championship. Circuit, what do you think of Sebring? What are your thoughts around there? Very different, I know, to what we've seen over the past few events with Road America and tonight here at CODA. But what are your thoughts going into the final race of the championship?
Yeah, I'm a fan of Sebring. I enjoy it. It's a challenging track. I'm just hoping the Porsche is going to be fast there, and hopefully I can finish the season with a win. So that's basically what I'm hoping for.
Absolutely, mate. Well, you're definitely driving the wheels off the EXG Porsche there, and another very strong result for yourself tonight, and just continuing to add on to the points tally. But before we let you go and have a bit of a celebration on it, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out and a thanks to?
Yeah, just cheers to EXG, my team, everybody behind the scenes, and you guys for doing a great job. And see you guys next week. Cheers.
Absolutely, mate. Look forward to catching up with you out on track. All the best.
Later.
Danny Davison there, your second place man, and we've now got our third place finisher as well, Andrew Dyson, with a brilliant result. Andrew, congratulations. I've got to ask you though, what happened in those final few laps? I mean, did you get like some missiles strapped to the back of your car? Because all of a sudden, you were setting purple sectors absolutely everywhere. It was incredible, your pace right at the end of the race.
Oh yeah, hey guys, thanks for having me. I think there was two things in that. I had a bit of a tow from Nathan Hubbard's, which was one thing, and the other thing was I accidentally took one tire in that last pit stop there, and I think that was, funnily enough, really helping me out. So that probably explains why the pace suddenly got quite good, comparative to Nathan at the end there.
That explains a lot, because we were also confused why you were stationary in your pit stop for longer than everyone else. You were stationary across the two stops about 6 seconds longer than everyone else. So that was down to the tyre, I guess.
Yeah, rookie error there. I knew I was going to come in I was only going to take 4 tyres in my first stop. But rookie error being I didn't remind myself to turn off all the tyres after my first stop. So anyway, as soon as I came up on the jack, so I was kind of cursing myself. But luckily got away with it in the end, and still had a really good race with Nathan. And it was a lot of fun.
Were you eyeing that move up at turn 11 for a few laps before? Did you know that was a weakness for him, or do you think there was a few other opportunities for you to make the move elsewhere around the track?
Well, there's a few spots around this track you can really have a dive and kind of park up. But when I kind of got to him, I thought it may have been the second last lap, and I thought if I'm going to have a go, then I kind of want to get it done as soon as possible, and then get a bit of a run through that twisty section, especially because I thought, it felt like my car was a little bit faster through the last sector, or that second last sector, where the corners are all really tight and it kind of turns back on itself a lot. So I thought that was going to be, the best opportunity I had, so I had a go and kind of threw it down there and parked it up, and was able to park it up. Luckily, I was locking up the front tyre a bit, but we got there.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty brave as well, because you ended up on 15 incidents. 17 incidents is the limit before you get a drive through. So if you'd got a 4x there, that would have been a drive through penalty for you. So I mean, was that playing in your mind, or once you get to that point in the race, is it all focus on just making that overtake?
Oh no, 100%. I knew how many incidents I'd racked up already that race, so I took a deep breath and was kind of really hoping that Nathan would play fair, and he did. To his credit, he kind of went out a bit wide and tried to play the switch track game and had a good little battle out of it for sure. So no, that was definitely on my mind, 100%.
Next up, we head to Sebring. Can we expect to see you out at that final race of the season?
Hopefully. I've kind of been a little bit not really a regular competitor here, I suppose, but I like to come in when I can. So if I'm free, I'll definitely be racing next Sunday.
Awesome. We look forward to seeing you there. Andrew, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, absolutely. All the broadcast sponsors, you guys for putting the broadcast together, and AMF sponsors, our own team sponsors, Simrix.com, Southwell Lifts and Hoists, BMX Mechanical and BetSmart Racing Services, NP Designs as well. We can't forget Neil Pearson for getting our paints together. Love his work. And a little shout out to Philip early tonight, who was watching over me. Appreciate the help, man.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for having a chat with us in the commentary box, Angie. And yeah, hope to see you back on Apex Racing TV very soon.
No worries. Thanks for having me, guys. Have a great night.
Andrew Dyson there, finishing in third position. By the way, I'm not sure how many people will care, but Chica Vizara did get a drive-through penalty in those closing laps, hence why he fell off the back of Paul Warwick by the end of the race. So that's just to fill in that little piece of a little bit of hole. And I mean, Daniel, that was really interesting to take one tire and to still be quick. I mean, I don't know if you've ever tried it, but I mean, I've tried maybe taking 2 front tires in the past or 2 rear tires. It kills the balance. You think that these setups are, you know, tweaked just to make it drivable. If you've then got 2 tires which are then very low on tread and 2 tires which are fresh, that can absolutely destroy it. So to have 1 fresh tire and to drive as fast as Dyson did, that was very impressive.
Absolutely, he did a hell of a job to make the most of that. I'd be interested to know which tire he actually changed, because I'm going to assume it was the front right, because you spend a lot of time here on the right side of the car turning through these corners. But it'd be interesting to know how he's managed to get through that one. But it paid off fantastically well for him, and then to set himself up for that big move that we saw down the inside of Huppets at the back of the straight, it was really good the way he was able to position that car and use the momentum. So, I mean, for most guys, as you say, probably not the best scenario to be in, but absolutely worked well for him.
Of course, next up we head to Sebring. Now, we're going to have our old argument here of whether or not it's a good circuit. I'm personally not a fan, even though you are a huge fan of Sebring. I always say lots of bumps, and I believe the Porsche doesn't deal with the bumps very well. I believe that's kind of its one weakness. So we could see a slightly different order next time out at Sebring, with the Porsche struggling. And I guess that's just going to help Ross Rizzo even more to get another race victory. I think it'd probably be his maybe 8th of the season.
Yeah, I love Sebring. I think it's a real, a really good circuit, not only to test all areas of your car, but also your driving style. A lot of bumps to work your way through. And as you say, the biggest issues for the bumps, and if we think the Porsche is having those issues, is definitely going to be through Sunset, through the final corner, and then down through that very quick turn 1, where you're on the old airport tarmac. So that will definitely present a few unique challenges. The racing always very good there. And it's going to be a real challenge for these guys. I know they probably would have, like we heard from Ross, would have rathered the street circuit, because in a way that kind of gives you a little bit of practice to get ready for what to expect at Sebring, because it is unlike anything traditionally we drive here. And I think to not go to a street circuit like Belle Isle or Long Beach, probably not a bad idea, because it keeps the guys thinking of what they're going to be in for out on circuit. So yeah, I'm well and truly looking forward to it. I think it'll be a fantastic way to conclude the season. And I'm sorry, mate, you're wrong when you say it's not one of the best circuits out there.
I know I'm in the minority. I'll concede that one, but yeah, we'll see. It's usually good races, as we have at Circuit of the Americas, to be honest, on a consistent basis. We'll see what happens then at Sebring. 45-minute sprint race to end this season 14 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series. Final shout out to Virtual Racing School, who have got over 50 data packs on the road and oval sides of racing. One-to-one coaching from some of the best drivers on iRacing, of course, and loads of other elements such as track guides, data analysis software, and of course setups as well. So do check out Virtual Racing School. Big thanks to them for also kind of using some of that telemetry software in with the Apex Racing Academy as well. So yeah, massive thanks to VRS and of course SDK Gaming and Apex Racing Academy as well. If you've enjoyed this broadcast, do leave a like on it and subscribe to Apex Racing TV. Also check out our social media as well on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, because we post little highlights of each of our races. We kind of show little 1-minute snippets of some of the best moments from our races throughout the week. So I recommend I recommend following our social media, and yeah, you can see all those little clips if you choose. We'll be back with you then for Sebring for the season finale of the season 14 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT series. I've been Sam Fitzpatrick. Alongside me has been Daniel Lee, Scott Newton, bringing you the cameras, and we are going to say goodbye for now and see you for the season finale in 1 week's time. See you then.